a robot drawn out in Illustrator. You should be using the shape tools. We talked a little bit in the first video about the direct selection tool and the selection tool, and should have it set up just like this. Now, if you happen to have made your robot and your robot has been pieced together and looks like this where all the parts are connected and everything's good, what I'd like you to do is take that selection tool and pull the arms off, pull the legs off, and disconnect the head. We want to have at the end 6 separate pieces. We're going to animate them. We need them separate. We can separate them later on, but it's a lot easier and neater if they are broken up like this. And you might have a more elaborate drawing. You can have a more simple drawing, whatever. But here's the robot. Now, from Illustrator, what we're going to do is we're going to select all. We've selected all before. In Photoshop, it's the same shortcut, Control A. And when you hit Control A, you should see everything is highlighted. Everything is blue, and there is a transform box around it. Control C to copy it, and then we can open up Photoshop. When we go to Photoshop, we can File, New, and create a whole new project. When you hit File, New, you want to go to Film Video. Under Film Video, that first HDTV one is perfectly fine. So we can hit Create. It gives you a little bit of a guideline, knowing where sometimes on different screens videos can get cut off, meaning that if you put it inside those little blue lines that aren't really on your screen, you know that whatever images you're putting there won't get cropped if it happens to be on an iPhone or an Android or on a big screen television. Control V to paste it. When you go to paste your robot on there, you're going to see it says pixels. There's a lot of different ways to do this. Pixels is fine. You can hit OK. It should appear there. Before you place it, you'll notice it's in the transform option because it has an X going through it. What I recommend is scaling this thing up so it looks like it'll fit well. You don't have to make it gigantic so the head's like right at the edge of the screen, but when we assemble this robot, that the head and the legs all together will pretty much fit inside your guidelines. When you have it the way you want, you can hit Enter. Control plus and Control minus, as we've always known, is zoom in, zoom out. If you look at your layer window right now, you should probably have 2 layers. Layer 1 is the background over here. Background is just a white background. You can hit the eyeball on background and make it disappear. What you should then be seeing is the layer you just pasted, layer 1, that has just your robot on it. And if you did it correctly, he's all white. If he's not all white, it's okay. Now to color this guy, what I want to do is I'm going to first label that layer. I'll label it robot. We're going to make multiple layers. It's easier to do this and not get confused. And then I'm going to lock that layer because I don't want to paint on that layer. We're going to paint this slightly different than we did before. Because we used shapes and they are closed, we're going to take our old friend the magic wand. We used the magic wand before to select backgrounds and delete them. This time what we're going to do is we're going to select parts of the robot's body. In this case, since they're closed shapes, you can select the inside parts of them. Okay, like the hand, the chest, whatever. Once we've selected that area, and again, that's on that layer of robot, we'll create a new layer. This layer is going to be our color. You can make different layers for different colors. You can make different layers for different parts. Or you don't have to. You could just have one layer for color, and that's fine. We don't, though, have to change this layer from normal to multiply. It can just stay normal. Because of the magic wand's not selecting the black outline, it's just selecting the empty space, we're good. Now, we're going to go to our color picker. Now, on the color picker, you've got the top one, and you've picked colors before, and you know how to do that. You may have noticed on the color picker there's 2 squares, one on top of the other. There's a top square and a bottom square. Usually one's black, one's white, or whatever you change that color to. I'm going to click on the bottom square. When I click on the bottom square, you'll notice the color picker pops up and you'll know you're on the bottom square because it says background color in parentheses. I'm going to pick a different color. In this case, I don't know, lime green. So if I look at my color picker right now, and I know it's a little obscured on the screen here, but I've got red on top and green on the bottom. And what I'm going to do now, instead of using the paint bucket or the paintbrush, I'm going to go to where the paint bucket is on my toolbar. I'm going to be looking for the gradient tool. G is the shortcut, but the gradient tool looks like a rectangle with basically a grayscale wash through it. Fades from black to white. Now, up here, when you click on that tool, you're going to see the tool options. Okay? It should all be set to the defaults. If it isn't, it should say normal over there. Mine, I was doing something else earlier. That's why I didn't say it. But if you're not, yours doesn't work like mine, just ask me to come over and check it. You'll see right over here, the two colors that you selected are in this box over here, and you'll see them fading from one to the other. And now if you take that gradient tool and you click and you drag, you'll be creating a line, almost like an anchor point in Illustrator. When you release that, what will happen is it will fill that area in with a sort of fade from one color to the next. A gradient, exactly. If you do a short, if you click and drag short, it will do a short gradient. If you click and drag long, it will do a long, delicate gradient. If you go to the top options here and you switch, you can see right where that first box is clicked. There's another one that looks like the gradient starts from the center. If I click and drag out now, it starts with the one color in the center and fades out to the other edge. If you want it to be green in the middle and red on the outside, you can go back to your color picker and just hit that swap arrow, and you'll see it flips it, and then you could do it again. And this time when you do it, it'll be green in the center and red on the outside. And again, the longer you make your line, the more gradual that is. And because I picked green and red, which are opposites, a little extreme over here, but you can pick similar colors if you want. You can even just do it in grayscale. The next option over here, if you click and drag, it kind of makes like an edge and then fades around it. So you'll see what that looks like when I let go in a second. All right. The last one over here is if you click and drag, it will sort of make this, where you start the drag will be your first color, where you end will be the last one, and it will make it symmetrical. And then we have a couple other ones where this one makes sort of like a cross. All right, so I think this would be a good tool to learn and use. I think this will be a good way to color your robot. When you're doing this, what I recommend is you color a piece, like I just did, then you go back to the robot layer. You grab your magic wand, you select a new section of that robot, and then you can go back to your color layer. And now on your color layer, you can use the same colors if you want, or you can go ahead and change all of them completely. Again, you're changing the first color, the top color, and the bottom color. You can do even the same color family, whichever you decide. You can use whichever type of gradient overlay you want, and you start coloring. All right, and that's going to be Control D to deselect. That's going to be coloring our robot. So we are going to make our robot in Illustrator. We are going to select and copy him and bring him into a video file in Photoshop. We are going to use multiple layers, and we are going to color them up using the gradient tool and the magic wand. When you're done with this, as always, make sure you save your work. Because there are multiple layers, your work should always be coming up as a Photoshop document. If you're not saving your work as a PSD, there's a problem. Make sure you go and call me over and ask me what to do, but they should be PSDs. When we're done with coloring them, the next thing that I do in class will be how to start animating them.